Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear colleagues, Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me in the next 30 minutes to present in a summary way the content of the paper prepared for this symposium. I will distribute my presentation in 4 sections, as you can see on the screen. From the remotest time, humanity has been inclined, if not force, to obtain resources required for subsistence through effort and work. Remember Genesis 3:17-19. This being the case, it is not less true, according to the testimonies, that man has continually sought to reduce the fatigue, assisting himself with his discovery of the means of production, tools, machines, which made the productive endeavor he undertook more bearable, cultivating land or hunting and fishing. Therefore, since the origins of man, there has been a nexus between human work and the material means of production. Section 1, the multidimensional wealth of human labor. Man is not only the subject of work. Part of his human dimension lies in work, but his capacity, and even more so, his potentiality, encompasses areas with unimaginable boundaries. Human work should be an opportunity for man to bring many aspects of life into play: creativity, planning for the future, developing our talents, living out our values, relating to others, giving glory to God. Laudato Si 127. From that helpless newborn child to the old person battered by time and circumstances, there is a series of vital sequences that turn what initially manifested itself as potential into reality. Opportunities for greatness and for good, although the alternative of despondency and neglect is also afforded by all of these opportunities. How many of those born on the fringes of society and called to the greatness of a life to serve and bring good to the community end up in the most ignominious deprivation due to lack of access to what is most essential, the integral personal development? In contrast, many others, born in a fertile orchard of opportunities of improvement, waste time, conditions, and favorable environment, remaining anchored in frustration and social insignificance, ultimately in marginalization due to irresponsible indolence. We cannot ignore the fact that work is a necessity, part of the meaning of life on this earth, a path to growth, human development, and personal fulfillment. Laudato Si 128. All of this determines that, in addition to the fact that no two men are the same, no two workers are the same, and no two jobs are equally the same. It cannot be forgotten that workman is, above all, a man. In other words, a singular and unrepeatable being composed of the conjunction of 2 dimensions: the material dimension, the body and all its physical faculties and capacities, and the spiritual dimension, the soul and its intrinsic powers. In St. Thomas, corporeal and incorporeal powers. The two are inseparable from man in his humanity, and they are demonstrated with clarity in his sociability. Therefore, in this respect, sociability, work constitutes a foundation for the formation of family life, which is a natural right and something that man is called to. These 2 spheres of values, one linked to work and the other consequent on the family nature of human life, must be properly united and must properly permeate each other. There can be no disassociation of them in the same way that it is impossible to disassociate the spirit and the body. Laborem exercens number 10. In this way, The family, thanks to the work which sustains it, is in turn the platform upon which unfolds the training process of the workman, his vocation, his apprenticeship, and his dedication to work entrusted to him. And what we are saying of the family relationship can be extrapolated to the national community and taking it to the limit, the relationships in the greatest of all community, the human family. This sense of belonging, of openness to social relationships, of willingness to share what we have and what we obtain in common is accompanied by something more than a feeling, a spontaneous blossoming of the practicing of the virtue of solidarity. It is in this aspiration of the working man to open himself to the community from where he obtains the opportunities to improve, to enrich the community, and to enrich himself from the community in turn. It is this desire to share that underlies true social progress as a communal transposition of true human progress. Section 2, a retrospective look at innovations. It can be stated that any discovery, any invention that manages to have an economic and social impact has the fundamental aim of improving the life of people, finding and availing of more abundant or better quality resources, and ultimately placing the intelligence of people at the service of the community. Each innovation, at the time at which it becomes effective in the life and for the life of men, produces two effects. On the one hand, fascination before the work created by the man, and on the other hand, a percussive effect, a consequence of its economic and social impact, disrupting the production system and, in all probability, influencing, at least in the short term, the work of a significant part of the community. The fascination effect is occasionally of such a nature that man has and the community forget that they are above the invention and that the latter is due to their competence and endeavors. Of all the things I have heard in my life, nothing has been quite as striking as what was said at the Mobile World Congress held in Barcelona on February 2019. Following the performance of a robot on the piano, the presenter stated that the robot had shown, I quote, greater interpretative perfection than that of the finest virtuous pianist, unquote. Sincerely, I would prefer an interpreter capable of interpreting and of erring. Would the first time a plough was seen in the process of cultivating the land not have produced fascination over 5,000 years ago? Or an axe-drawn cart transporting goods without any effort on the part of the carrier? How many workers were left jobless as a result of those two inventions? The truth is that the two inventions, while causing admiration and disruption in the time, were also saving time and effort for those men devoted to the task affected by the invention. Where did those unemployed men end up? Is there such a great distance between that cutting instruments used to produce a carved stone in Paleolithic times and the knife of the 21st century? And more importantly, would the knife of today exist if that cutting instrument had not existed? Egypt, China, Greece, and Rome, and the different ages of the Christian era are the foundations and fertile land on which the world of the 21st century was built. Section 3, on the eve of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It was John Maynard Keynes who first used the term technological unemployment to illustrate the immediate effects of rapid, large-scale innovations. It is certainly true that the changes that come with all revolutions seem to be accentuated as we progress through history. The earlier industrial revolutions might have required training of workers' skills, mainly of a physical cleverness. More recent industrial revolutions have required intellectual training and a mental disposition that has not always been within the reach of everybody, especially older workers. The challenges posed by the fourth industrial revolution are greater than those of the previous eras. They are greater in intensity and also greater in terms of training and a specific preparation. We are speaking of a revolution based on so-called artificial intelligence in order to, through it and based on it, the automated economy will be constructed, going beyond the automation of industry already operating in the market for many years. Does this mean that all productive activity of both goods and services will become automated? Obviously not. Sometimes because the activity will be not susceptible to automation, and on other occasions because such automation will not be economically feasible. There are studies that have analyzed the professions that could be susceptible to automation. Frey and Osborne analyzed the professional profiles required for certain activities in 207 professions and observed that 33 were not automatable and that 37 had already been automated. It can be deduced from this that potentiality of 70% of professions could be threatened by automation that might affect employment in these professions. Although, given human and economic constraints, there would be not certainty that these professions will be finally automated. Similarly, a study based on statistical data of the potential substitutions of human work for computer or robots carried out in 13 economic sectors between 2013 and 2016 in Germany produced some eloquent results. In 4 of the sectors analyzed, what happens? That's right, finally. In 4 of the sectors analyzed, the incremental real substitution potentials between 2013 and 2016 was never higher than 5 percentage points in sectors associated with provision of services and those related to medicine and health. That potential was a negative impact ranging from between -1 and -4 percentage points respectively. 6 sectors had an increased probability of substitution between 6 and 10 percentage points, while the potential for automation in the rest of the sectors increased in the range of 13 to 20 percentage points in the period considered. It is certainly true that the German labor negotiation model is not the most common in European and non-European countries for that matter. In other countries, imbalances in labor market give rise to employment and unemployment movements. On the contrary, in the German model, the adjustments do not occur in the level of employment, but most often in the wage level in the form of salary compromise. Sorry. We have also seen from graph 1 that the potential for substituting human work with the work of computers is very variable depending on the specific sectors and professions we look at. It is clear that for a repetitive manual task, the substitution potential is very high, which does not necessarily mean that substitution will occur because there are other constraints, human and economic. In creative work, research work and management, in which the productive action is individualized within a specific person, the potential to substitute men with machines is almost non-existent or very difficult. In the case of both high and low substitution potential, an important factor is the readiness of the subject of the work and also that of the entire productive system for man-machine permeability. At the very end, the productive entity aspires to compete in the markets as a requisite for survival, and human rejection of the new technologies could bring the existence of the company as a whole to an end. Therefore, we must be convinced on the fact that the challenge posed by the fourth industrial revolution will be an opportunity to avail of by those who join it and will mortally bound countries wishing to protect themselves from the influence. It is very true that there will be changes, that there will of necessity be new labor relations model and new ways of hiring workers. In all probability, the old concept of job allied to the concept of the worker being regarded as the possessor of this job will change or even disappear to give way to a more functional and necessarily more flexible concept of occupation. Personal competences will be decisive in order to have access to the occupation that will emerge as the production system incorporates the improved technologies. Pace and intensity will be very different in different countries and in different economic activity, and even more so in different workers. Right now, at the beginning, the differences are very noticeable, giving rise to grounds for a special concern. In graph 2 shows the comparative supply of industrial robots, data and forecast in different continents with a more than significant predominance of Asia. The exponential growth for Asia in a period 2016 to 2018 is forecast to continue at a similar annual rate in the period 2018-2021. The 2016 data show that the number of robots supplied to Asia is the equivalent of 184% of those supplied to the rest of the world. This already large figure increased to 243% as per the latest available data for 2018. We move from the aggregate dimension of the market by continents to a breakdown of the values for the 15 most significant countries. Graph 3 shows that China stands out with 132.2 thousand industrial robots installed, followed by Japan with 52.4, United States with 38.1, South Korea with 37.6, Germany 27.9, and so on. If we look more significantly at the number of industrial robots in relation to the number of employees, the situation is quite different. Graph 4 shows the number of industrial robots installed per 10,000 employees in 21st country in 2017. China now occupies 21st position with only 97 robots every 10,000 employees. South Korea tops the table with 710 robots, followed by Singapore with 658, Germany 322, Japan 308, Sweden 240, Denmark 230, the USA 200, etc. The graph also includes, for illustrative purposes, continental average. Europe has the highest average with 106 robots per 10,000 employees, followed by America with 91 and Asia with 75. The world average is 85 robots for every 10,000 employees. In the light of these technology endowments, job offers in many countries will see more than ever before significant differences between qualified and unskilled workers. Some countries, in accordance with what can be seen on the graphs, began to make measures some years ago, while others have been less diligent in terms of the educational effort needed to serve the technological breakthroughs of the present era. Countries which commenced earlier the process of training workers in technology have significantly enhanced worker skills in terms of addressing the current process of change. We believe that the adaptation of the supply of labor in order to offer the qualifications demanded by the new technology requires a long period of time. Therefore, in various countries, we will face a situation of a double dualism in the labor markets. On the one hand, the dualism we might describe as traditional, particularly in countries with high level of job protection as a result of high dismissal cost. Along with this, we will find a new brand of dualism featuring highly qualified workers with high salaries, low unemployment, if any, and very little volatility in terms of employment and salaries, and workers with low qualifications, no qualifications, or qualifications unsuited to the demands of the new technological revolutions. These workers suffer high unemployment, very low salaries, and high volatility in terms of job security and salary levels. Fourth, by way of conclusion, based on what we have been saying, it is true that the fourth industrial revolution can be seen as a threat to workers who currently have jobs. But it is not less true that the adverse or favorable effects will depend on the attitude of the subject who play a leading role in the production process and the social improvements or regression arising from their decisions. For this reason, we cannot but ask ourselves, will the jobs we are doing today disappear? What do we do with our professions, which has been consolidated with personal effort? What do we do with our training, unquestionable over decades of our working life? Perhaps the questions are very apocalyptic, just as those asked in the course of a dinner on the occasion of the visit of President Obama to Silicon Valley in February 2011. The question that attracted most attention was one of the President himself put to Mr. Steve Jobs. President Obama asked, what would it take to make iPhones in the United States? Why can't that work come home? Jobs' reply was blunt. Those jobs aren't coming back. In our opinion, his dramatic reply could be slightly different. Something like, those jobs will not return, but there will be many new forms of employment currently not in existence. Keynes himself, subsequent to announcing technological unemployment, assessed the financial result of the problem he considered to be transitory, and in respect that he stated, this is only, said Keynes, a temporary phase of maladjustment. All this means, in the long run, that mankind is solving its economic problem. What role is currently being played by so many and so varied platforms that act as virtual instruments for the connections between suppliers and demanders of goods and also of services, even of very personal services. To what point the flexibility of the worker in order to reconcile his desires for an intense family life with the need to work in exchange for remuneration? Or is it that work necessarily implies the rigidity of a timetable and the physical association of a manufacturing space in which to carry out a productive activity? Naturally, these spaces will continue to exist with their mechanized installation, with their robots for activities susceptible to automation, and with workers performing functions different to those carried out by their predecessors. The man of the 21st century will find in himself in the same way as his predecessors impacted by this double feeling, the feeling of fascination arising from the possibilities opened up by the new contribution of human knowledge, and the feeling of panic arising from the doubt about his own capacity to accept the change and benefit from the great results afforded by it. But he will also confirm with fairness that his life unfolds along very different lines to that of his predecessors from a mere 3 generations ago. The protagonist of this radical change between living conditions at the beginning of the 19th century and those of the 21st century is development, scientific, technological, and economic development, and above all, human development. The new man of today, with more free time for family, for sociability, for leisure, for contemplation, for spiritual enrichment, due to shorter working days than those of just half a century ago. What is also true is that many jobs that are very common today will belong to those that Steve Jobs told President Obama will not return. Nonetheless, there will be many more in sectors currently unimaginable that will offer new employment opportunities for people who perhaps do not yet exist. New industries with greater human touch, social media providing remunerated employment for individual creators, public funding for services aimed at children and elderly, chatbox designers, pedestrian behavior specialists for autonomous vehicle software. Alain Dehaze, the CEO of ADECO, a human resource company, said it is not the one who believes that robots will take away our work, although he believes that half of today's jobs will not exist in a few years or will be otherwise. Of those children who are now between 6 and 12 years old, 6 out of 10 will perform work that does not exist today. There are about 375 million people, representing 14% of the world's workforce, that will have to be recycled. 2 milestones emerge on the horizon: competent education and flexibility in learning and acting. The educational should emphasize its scientific, technical, and especially humanist training carried out with rigor and intensity, as well as lifelong learning and responsibility in the endeavor demanded. A responsibility that which, although identified with the person, also embraces the sphere of social responsibility. And let us not forget that we are human persons, a privilege above and before any material matter, regardless of the benefits of the later. In the second half of the last century, there were already many temptations associated with materialism, hedonism, superficial and ephemeral life of leisure, which caused many to abandon the path of truth and become enslaved in the possession of material goods. Some of this may continue to be the case, and there may be additional risks. Could the proximity of the machine, the robot, distance us from men? Is there a place for indifference to the other, to our brother? Could scientific and technical progress cause us to forget our own humanity? With whom the practice of charity and solidarity? The answer to all of this is to be found in our own heart, called upon to work with rectitude. It depends solely on us, and this is certainly a task that we cannot entrust to artificial intelligence or to the algorithms that make it effective. Thank you so much.